Do we live in a borderless world? Before you answer that, have a look at this map. Contemporary political map shows that we have over 200 countries in the world today. That's probably more than at any time in centuries. Now, many of you will object. For you, this would be a more appropriate map. You could call it Tedistan. In Tedistan, there are no borders, just connected spaces and unconnected spaces. Most of you probably reside in one of the 40 dots on this screen, of the many more, that represent 90% of the world economy. But let's talk about the 90% of the world population that will never leave the place in which they were born. For them, nations, countries, boundaries, borders still matter a great deal, and often violently. Now here at TED, we're solving some of the great riddles of science and mysteries of the universe. Well, here's a fundamental problem we have not solved: our basic political geography. How do we distribute ourselves around the world? Now this is important because border conflicts justify so much of the world's military-industrial complex. Border conflicts can derail so much of the progress that we hope to achieve here. So I think we need a deeper understanding of how people, money, power, religion, culture, technology interact to change the map of the world. And we can try and anticipate those changes and shape them in a more constructive direction. We have 200 countries in the world. The entire planet is covered by sovereign, independent nation-states. Does that mean that someone's gain has to be someone else's loss? Let's zoom in on one of the most strategic areas of the world, Eastern Eurasia. As you can see on this map, Russia is still the largest country in the world, and as you know, China is the most populous, and they share a lengthy land border. What you don't see on this map is that most of Russia's 150 million people are concentrated in its western provinces and areas that are close to Europe, and only 30 million people are in its eastern areas. In fact, the World Bank predicts that Russia's population is declining towards about 120 million people. And there's another thing that you don't see on this map. Stalin, Khrushchev, and other Soviet leaders forced Russians out to the Far East to be in gulags, labor camps, nuclear cities, whatever the case was. But as oil prices rose, Russian governments have invested in infrastructure to unite the country east and west. But nothing has more perversely impacted Russia's demographic distribution, because the people in the east, who never wanted to be there anyway, have got on those trains and roads and gone back to the west. As a result, in the Russian Far East today, which is twice the size of India, you have exactly 6 million Russians. So let's get a sense of what's happening in this part of the world. We can start with Mongolia, or as some call it, Mine-Golia. Why do they call it that? Because in Mine-Golia, Chinese firms operate and own most of the mines, copper, zinc, gold, and they truck the resources south and east into mainland China. China isn't conquering Mongolia, it's buying it. Colonies were once conquered, today countries are bought. So let's apply this principle to Siberia. Siberia, most of you probably think of as a cold, desolate, unlivable place. But in fact, with global warming and rising temperatures, all of a sudden you have vast wheat fields and agribusiness and grain being produced in Siberia. But who's it going to feed? Well, just on the other side of the Amur River, in the Heilongjiang and Harbin provinces of China, you have over 100 million people. That's larger than the entire population of Russia. Every single year, for at least a decade or more, 600,000 of them have been voting with their feet, crossing, moving north, and inhabiting this desolate terrain. They set up their own bazaars and medical clinics. They've taken over the timber industry and been shipping the lumber east back into China. Again, like Mongolia, China isn't conquering Russia. It's just leasing it. That's what I call globalization Chinese style. Now, maybe this is what the map of the region might look like in 10 to 20 years. But hold on. This map is 700 years old. This is the map of the Yuan dynasty, led by Kublai Khan, the grandson of Genghis Khan. So history doesn't necessarily repeat itself, but it does rhyme. This is just to give you a taste